Welcome to Neurodivergent Pathways, a calm space for parents, caregivers, and anyone looking to learn more about neurodiversity. Today, we're going to look at neuroplasticity and why it matters. Before we begin, it's worth saying this clearly. This conversation is not about fixing children. It is not about speeding development up, and it is not about pressure, urgency, or comparison. Neuroplasticity is often spoken about in loud, dramatic ways, as if the brain can be endlessly reshaped, or as if effort alone can overcome any challenge. In reality, neuroplasticity is much quieter than that. It is the brain's natural ability to adapt slowly, over time, in response to experience, safety, repetition, and support. In the context of special and inclusive education, neuroplasticity helps us understand why support works, how learning happens differently, and what realistic progress actually looks like. This video is an invitation to slow down, understand the science gently, and rethink what growth really means for neurodivergent children. Whether you're listening while your child sleeps, during a quiet moment in your day, or even as you drift off yourself, you're exactly where you need to be. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's capacity to change its structure and function in response to experience. Think of it this way. The brain has pathways, connections between brain cells, that can strengthen, weaken, or reorganize depending on what we experience and practice. When experiences are repeated, meaningful, and emotionally safe, the brain builds more efficient pathways to support those experiences. This process is gradual. It is shaped by context, and it is deeply influenced by relationships. Take a breath here. Let that settle. Importantly, neuroplasticity does not mean that all brains change in the same way, at the same rate, or toward the same outcomes. Neuroplasticity explains adaptation, not uniformity. In other words, the brain does not become typical through plasticity. It becomes more practiced in what it is supported to do. Neuroplasticity is often described as strongest in early childhood, and broadly speaking, that is true. During early development, the brain shows high levels of synaptic growth, meaning it forms many connections rapidly. Over time, a process known as synaptic pruning occurs. Connections that are used frequently are strengthened, while others gradually weaken. This is not a loss. It is how the brain becomes more efficient. For neurodivergent children, this process may follow a different rhythm. Some pathways may develop more slowly, others may develop more intensely. Neuroplasticity does not disappear with age. It remains throughout the lifespan, but it becomes more dependent on experience. So if your child is 7, or 12, or 15, it is not too late. The brain is still learning, still adapting, still capable of growth. This is why consistency and fit matter more than intensity or urgency. In special and inclusive education, neuroplasticity helps us understand three important truths. First, development is possible, even when it looks different. Second, support changes outcomes, not by erasing neurodivergence, but by strengthening access. And third, environments shape learning as much as instruction does. This means that how your child feels at school, how safe they feel at home, and how understood they feel in the world, these matter just as much as any therapy session. Neuroplasticity explains why speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and structured educational support can be effective. These interventions do not rewire identity. They create repeated, supportive experiences that allow the brain to practice new skills safely. Over time, these experiences build stronger pathways, not overnight, but gradually. Therapy works not because it forces change, but because it creates the conditions for learning. Effective intervention is predictable, emotionally regulated, and relational. The brain learns best when it feels safe. This is why progress often appears slow at first. The brain needs time to trust the experience before it can adapt. Neuroplasticity reminds us that progress is not linear. Plateaus are not failure. Regression is not loss. These are natural parts of how learning consolidates. If your child learned something last month and seems to have forgotten it this month, that is not going backwards. That is the brain reorganizing. Integration takes time. It's important to gently address what neuroplasticity does not promise. Neuroplasticity does not mean that children will catch up if they try hard enough. Catch up to whom? To what? Your child is not behind. They are on their own path. It does not mean that difference disappears. And it does not justify unrealistic expectations. Neuroplasticity is not about potential without limits. It is about growth within context. Ethical practice in special and inclusive education respects both possibility and boundaries. It means saying, yes, your child can learn and grow, and also saying, no, not everything is possible, and that is okay. In education, neuroplasticity supports inclusive approaches, such as universal design for learning. These approaches recognize that learning pathways vary and that flexibility benefits everyone. Neuroplasticity supports teaching that values repetition, predictability, and emotional safety. Learning happens best when children are not rushed, compared, or pressured to perform. If you've ever felt the weight of progress charts, milestone checklists, or developmental timelines, you can set those down for a moment. They are not measuring what matters most. Instead, learning strengthens when environments are calm, expectations are realistic, and support is consistent. Neuroplasticity reminds us that education is not about accelerating development. It is about creating conditions where development can unfold. When we understand neuroplasticity properly, it changes how we view progress. It invites patience instead of urgency, understanding instead of comparison, and support instead of pressure. For neurodivergent children, growth does not need to be loud to be meaningful. Sometimes, the most important changes are the quiet ones, built slowly, safely, and with care. If you are a parent watching your child navigate a world that wasn't built for them, know this: you are doing enough. Your presence, your patience, your willingness to learn, that is neuroplasticity in action too, for both of you. Thank you for spending this time with us.